Hey, I can't believe this day is finally here. Quick story. Spilling water all over myself. Quick story. So I've been podcasting for about 13 years. Um, thank God that I can do this for a living now. Love it. It's an honor. My name is Todd Uri, by the way, pharmacy podcast founder, launched in 2009. But I have never had my own show, like literally. So this week in pharmacy is a dedication. It's my prose, it's my poem, it's my affirmation of love for our transforming industry, the industry of pharmacy. And this week in pharmacy is going to be a collective on so many topics that's going to be driven by our profession and people in our profession. This is going to be fun. I want to have this not only integrated into the messaging that is current events per se, but I want our consumers to eventually tune in to understand what is going on in this week in pharmacy. And this week in pharmacy is brought to us by today by the U.S. Pharmy. All right. So as you can see, we've been joined today by someone that we need help with our audience. So if you're listening to the podcast, you can't see right now. We just went to another camera view in the studio, T1AU studio here at the Pharmacy Podcast headquarters. We need to name this mannequin. So we're going to do a shout out and get everybody to participate, but we need to name this staff member because we're going to put clothes on it, and we're going to, I don't know, we're going to promote this shirt today. I'm wearing this shirt today, designed this shirt back in 2019. This is to raise money, U.S. Pharmy, to raise money for our vets. Every dollar of this goes towards the program. I'm raising the awareness of what pharmacists do for our veterans, and all the nuances and specifics around veteran care and mental health for veterans. So today's episode is brought to us by the U.S. Pharmy, and I'm excited that we've had sponsors help us with the U.S. Pharmy. I want to show you our sponsors, and a shout out to our sponsors. Shout out to First Class Returns. Thank you, Joe, for everything that you do for Pharmacy Podcast Network. A shout out to Fin Partners, who's kind of like our big brother. We'll talk more about Fin Partners and integrate them into some of our initiatives that is very collaborative and where pharmacists need to show up in healthcare and already are. RxSafe, they're amazing. We're going to talk a little bit about them later. The Dog Tag, which is where our money is going. So they're an organization in Fayette County, Pennsylvania, that helps veterans in a multitude of different ways. And then the one and only, our leaders in education. If you don't know about ConveyMed is an organization that builds audio content, podcasting content for physicians. And we're following along in their playbook and designing some direct programming and continuing education for our pharmacists, as well as collaborative episodes that are coming in 2023. Hey, welcome to This Week in Pharmacy. I'm so excited that you're here. I want this to be collaborative. I want this to be featuring pharmacists that are literally changing things, professionals that are changing things. I want to talk about working with pharmacists. And the first person I want to kind of mention is Lisa Fast. Dr. Lisa Fast has been a supportive pharmacist in the market, but more than supportive to us as a subject matter expert. She has been supportive to the community pharmacy market and community pharmacy owners. The need to help pharmacists design repeatable, metrics-driven and measurable activities. You're going to have to make some changes, and you're going to have to stay up with the times. And you have people in your marketplace who are not only trustworthy, but they understand running a pharmacy. We have pharmacy owners who are in our inner circle that are just tremendous people. and they believe in what they do. They drive their business from their heart. These are the people you want to surround yourself with as pharmacy owners. So you're going to hear a lot of community pharmacy talk, community pharmacy interviews on This Week in Pharmacy, because what do you know? That's where the consumer sees our pharmacists the most, is in community pharmacy. And we have to understand who our customers. My customer, my ultimate customer is the patient. It's your customer. It's your patient is literally the end consumer of our content. I want to talk about Christina Fontana. Dr. Christina Fontana is known as the pharmacist coach. She's committed to empowering women in healthcare. Obviously, she has a sweet spot in pharmacy because of her background as a pharmacist and PharmD, and she's just dynamic. She wrote a book that I got to be the intro to, the forward to. It's called Beyond the Counter, and she is just dynamic, and she has helped so many of her clients. We got to participate in her book signing event. I'm going to jump over and show you, if you haven't seen this book yet. It's called Beyond the Counter, and Christina leads with her heart. She's so sincere, and so these are the types of pharmacists I want involved in our programming, bringing new concepts of career changing, getting more out of your daily life. I don't really like to say workload balance, because I think that workload balance it's different for everybody. But literally, to be able to say, I want to wake up and do something with my PharmD or as a pharmacist every day that lights a fire inside me, that I don't feel like don't allow that light inside you to burn out. It shouldn't burn you out. Your job should not burn you out. It should make you excited. And that's why I'm excited about today's launch of this program, This Week in Pharmacy. I also want to talk about our next pharmacist, just as an example of the pharmacist role changing, and that is Dr. Jamie Wilkie. So look at this. She earned over $230,000 in less than a year teaching pharmacists how to literally get into consulting. And when I say that, that is of how your patient in your community perceives you as a healthcare expert, not just pharmacist, not just focused on medications. Because remember, we are moving away from prescription-based business. The business of pharmacy is not about the prescription. It's about the totality of what is pharmacy and how does pharmacy tie into our lives, everyone's life, and how it makes an impact, how it changes things. So we have pharmacists that are weight trainers, physical coaches, diet specific, disease state specific, pediatrics. I mean, we're going to use This Week in Pharmacy to not only build advocacy for our industry and for each other in the profession of pharmacy, but also how it's going to impact our patients. Because like I said, that's our customer. Hey, I want to give a shout out to another pharmacist, Dr. Brandon Welsh, who's going to become a bigger part of the Pharmacy Podcast Network in 2023. And he has started a magazine called The Pharmacy Athlete. And we're going to be working with Sam Hussein, and he is going to be a podcast host of the Pharmacist Athletic podcast and pharmacy sports podcast, and really dig into how can a pharmacist become a leader within their community around athletics, around sports. Imagine a community pharmacy reaching out to the sports administrator at a local high school and going in and talking to 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th senior graders in their school and talk about the dangers of cannabis to your growth at the time that you're doing it versus the use of cannabis in pain management, in topicals. And imagine having Brandon come on and talk about both sides of that and training you as a community pharmacy to go do a presentation for an athletic director of an entire school system, your school system in your community, and how that could become a source of, number one, safety and information for the consumer in your community. But number two, the fact that now you're branding yourself as an expert in pharmacological issues and pharmacology and in cannabis and titration and the whole worlds that are going to open up to that. So expect to hear more from for Dr. B, Dr. Welsh. Shout out to him. I'm just excited to be here today, to be working with pharmacists. That's my life. I do this every day in and day out. And there's so much that we're going to do. There's so much that we have planned for this week in pharmacy. If you are a pharmacist that's looking to transition from one part of the industry to the next, if you want to become a medical science liaison, pardon me, if you want to go into long-term care pharmacy, if you want to do anything that you are looking for some direction, please reach out to our network. We have not only 45 direct hosts of different content, but I have a plethora of organizations that we've worked with either currently as our sponsors and driving our content, or that we've worked in the past in the partnerships that we're building. I am excited to see where this week in pharmacy is going to take us all. And it's not a defined journey, because I want our listeners and I want people in the profession. I want our pharmacists, obviously, pharmacy technicians. We have dedicated sectors of this programming that are going to be all about what you're doing and how you're changing healthcare within your communities. Obviously, we're going to get into the aspect of the pharmaceutical realm and be a little bit more clinical discussions. We're going to be also talking about the eve and the advent of social media transformation in healthcare, and how we saw through the pandemic there were trusted voices in and through that issue, and there were not so trusted voices. And what do you know? Pharmacists rose to the occasion, and it was the drive of getting testing done when it was needed, and the knowledge that there was more that pharmacy could do for their communities, and the world of the infectious disease pharmacist, of how they were leading development of what was happening during that time, and now the spillover to today, and what that means for recognition, what that means for career development, and what that means for the future of our profession. I want to give a shout out to our participators on TWIRx. So Twitter is one of my favorite platforms. We did a couple surveys that we're going to actually push out through social media on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. But our favorite platform, for my personal favorite platform, has always been Twitter. And then I've learned to use other platforms. There's too many of them out there to keep up with. We're just trying to get ourselves into to TikTok and having multiple platforms. I'd love to hear from you as a listener. I'd love to hear, how do you use social media? How do you keep up with it? How do you keep yourself connected to the very specific audience that you're after? And by the way, you have to be specific. Don't, and we're going to talk about social media strategies on this show. But in Twitter land, for example, hashtag TwitterX has been around for a long time, and it's growing popularity. It gets more than 30 million impressions per month around the content that it's driving. And it's brought a community of pharmacists together, and it's not always peaches and cream and rainbows. We have heated discussions and debates on hashtag TwitterRx, but we're able to filter all of the noise that's out there on Twitter to a specific audience of pharmacy professionals that follow that. And the ongoing in This Week in Pharmacy, we're always going to reference what's happening in the marketplace, what's happening right now in pharmacy through TwitterX, because there are some brilliant people in our profession and in healthcare who are participating on TwitterX. So if you don't have a Twitter account, and there's lots of you that don't, I encourage you to sign up for one and participate, at least from a listening, because social media can be used obviously for activeness and kind of pushing out not only your subject matter expertise and content, but sometimes you can use it just for research or just for listening. And we do a little bit of both at the Pharmacy Podcast Network, and I love it. I learned so much from you that participate on hashtag TwitterRx, and it leads to the other platforms. We're seeing spillover and the growth in Instagram and how important that platform is to you as a voice in pharmacy. And then TikTok is exploding. I don't even want to get into TikTok today. We will have a special episode surrounded in TikTok, and I will have a very special guest. I'm not going to say today, Phil Cowley. Phil's my pharmacist. Not to give away the surprise, but there are TikTok stars out there that are pharmacists that are growing their connectivity and their connection and their reach and the subject matter expertise that you bring on TikTok. And we'll be talking about social media platforms, controversy on social media platforms, as well as there's always good and bad in everything. You know that as pharmacists, you know that as healthcare professionals. Too much sugar, too much alcohol, too much smoke, too much. You can always have too much of something, just like social media, and too much for social media. So everybody has their opinions, but there's some studies out there that we're going to be referencing this week in pharmacy. And we're going to be going through what's happening in our industry. We have things like provider status to touch on. We have PBM reform that is governing how and where pharmacy moves throughout the consumer worlds. And we have the influence that comes from the transformation of pharmacy. If you're listening to this show, I want to applaud you, and I'll play some applause. We want to applaud you because you are ahead of the game, because you're tapped into social media, you're tapped into this podcast, you're tapped in if you're watching us on YouTube, to understand that it's relevant to be present in subjects that you want to be an authority in. And social media, goodness gracious, is where you have to be. So if you have advice for us, if you have some examples, please hashtag any of the social media platforms with hashtag this week in pharmacy. Can't even say my own hashtag. TWIRx. TWI capital R lowercase x. Doesn't have to be a lowercase, but I like the way it looks this week in pharmacy. Hey, I want to tell you what's happening on Monday. Monday, January 9th is the release of our amazing 50 most influential people in the pharmacy profession. This is the second year we've done it. And guess what? We had a 900% increase in participation from 2001 to 2022. And I tell you what, the names that were submitted, some of these people I don't even know, which is like, I thought I knew everybody in pharmacy. Obviously I don't. But there are some people doing some amazing work in transforming our profession and transforming what the pharmacist is, the value of the pharmacist that is so underplayed right now and under talked about. Think of This Week in Pharmacy also as a political engine to drive the heart of what pharmacy does in our healthcare system. I know I said a dirty word there. Some people don't like politics, but guess what? If you're in pharmacy, you have to understand that you have to get into representation of your profession. People that aren't involved in some kind of outward advocate, as being an outward advocate for our profession, your voice is not being heard. Just like our United States government system or any government system, you have to be representative of your thoughts and of your beliefs and of a profession. And This Week in Pharmacy is going to be a big, loud gong, bang, 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 about how important the pharmacist and pharmacy and the aspects are to the health of our communities, to the prosperity of our communities, and coming into a very financial sensitive time right now. January 6th, 2023. We're going through some pains as a nation, as a world, in many ways, especially in some of the financial aspects. And I believe that pharmacists play an extremely worldwide, extremely precious and important role in not only empowering their communities, but also empowering the recovery of a recession. And that's another dirty word. But the most influential leaders program in pharmacy, if we look at the previous winners, the number one voted last year in 2021 was the one and only Dr. Bled Tanoe, who is the fire and the person who launched the hashtag that has now become an amazing advocate for the change in our profession of pharmacy, as well as pharmacist roles. The one and only Dr. Bled Tanoe, founder of Pizza Is Not Working. I have been joyed and honored to be working with Bled. But that was last year. So be ready. On Monday, we're going to announce the winners of the 2022 most influential pharmacy professionals. And it's not just pharmacists. We have people on that list that are advocates for the profession, as well as what they're doing specifically in changing our profession, and how that's going to impact everything, in my opinion. I know I'm biased. I always tie it back to pharmacists, but literally there is so much that's coming out of pharmacy right now and impacting our world, impacting our nation. And I'm excited to be a very small part of it, and boosting and talking about how pharmacists are really changing the nation, changing our 330 million Americans' position in healthcare, as well as what people don't know about their community pharmacist, and how that's going to be part of our programming on This Week in Pharmacy. But like I said, we have a new segment on the This Week in Pharmacy called Let's Ask Kevin Jones. I'd like to introduce you to Kevin Jones, my friend and our business development lead. Kevin, thank you so much for being here on This Week in Pharmacy, the very first episode.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Happy New Year to everyone out there. My name is Kevin Jones, and you'll be able to find my contact information inside the show notes here at the Pharmacy Podcast Network, Jones at pharmacypodcast.com. And I'd like to be able, to say to you folks that it's the beginning of the year and it's time to start discussing ads, sponsorship, the different ways that we can help you, your brand. And I'd like to offer the opportunity that, at your leisure, we can take a 15-minute conversation. We'll set up a time and we'll go through our media kit. We have solutions for this year built for all of your different needs, so that there's a variety that can appear on all of our different podcasts, and something new that we can take time to discuss called white labeling, where the podcast will basically look like it was done inside your own, inside your own organization, without some of our branding on it. There's a lot of different options here, and we're expanding these options throughout 2023. And I just think that it's one of those opportunities that we can go over your needs, have a conversation to realize what your goals are and how we can fit into being a solution for those goals for this new year. We need to concentrate this year, Todd, on the idea that the podcast is not a standalone entity.
Absolutely not.
And your ability,
it's actually secondary information.
It is actually secondary information. And I think that what organizations need to understand is that this is the platform to reach a very specific audience that is not really common in other marketing areas. We have the ability to be hyper-focused on just the people that you're attempting to communicate with coming to you with an existing brand, and really the database is what we're actually talking about here. Is that when you're looking as a brand to reach a greater number of people, you can just do it a scattershot, and you really don't know who's actually listening. But we have the opposite. We have something that's hyper-focused. We have something that is in an arena that provides you with the ability to have metrics going back to your organization. And you also have the ability to post these podcasts on social media sites. and on those individual social media sites, also providing you with the metrics that you need. We understand that as a business, you're going to be focused on not just the production and what your topic is and what the subject matter is, and having subject matter experts discuss it, but you're also going to be an arena where you're going to have to be able to show your stakeholders metrics of the actual performance of what you're paying for. Yep. And so that's really where we're reaching out for this year.
Yeah, and I also think it's interesting, before I have some questions about how you came to be part of this organization, I think there's some referenceable historical information that I want to share with our listeners. But before I get in that, remember, we had Nicole McClure in the studio, and she was talking about the need to evolve marketing for the community pharmacy, and how podcasting is now going to become part of a community pharmacy's communications to their market, and how rxpodcast.com, we're going to lead with that, so we can literally help and turnkey podcasting services for our community pharmacy owners.
And, you know, the ideas that we're coming up with here at the shop, we're actually here in the studios constantly trying to figure out how we can take your business and market it directly to the local consumers. Yep. Whether that be an individual pharmacy or whether it actually be a pharmaceutical organization, that we can actually, you know, push that information out. How that programming can be actually honed into specific regions within the country and the world, but then also within different disease states and actual needs of the actual customers, and how these conversations can be continuing throughout the year. So we have a lot of, I think, just shining opportunities for this year that are coming up, and I'm welcoming you to, you know, start those conversations here early in 2023. And even when we go to the conferences, yep, you know, please come seek us out. Exactly. You know, when it comes to APHA, as an example.
APHA 2023 Pharmacy Podcast will be there. We'll be a media partner of the American Pharmacists Association. Kevin will be there. It'll be his first big conference that's around in the pharmacy profession, and it'll be a learning experience, as well as an engaging opportunity to build our network and engage with you. So if you're going to be there, let us know that you're going to be there. Dr. Nadia Archambault, the Sex PharmD, I think she's going with us too. We'll have more information upcoming, but what a dynamic pharmacist, Kevin, and someone that I want to get on the show more is someone to talk about sex. Who doesn't want to talk about sex? I know that's uncomfortable, but from a pharmacist perspective, there's a lot that your consumers are going to want to know from you. And there's many states that are enabling and empowering pharmacists to prescribe birth control, and that opens the door to so many conversations between your patient, the entire patient. That's not just the woman, that's not just the man, that's the entire family being involved, the entire world of what that means, the responsibility to others, as well as the health of the individual. So stay tuned, and there's going to be more from Dr. Archambault. She's known as Dr. A, and I'm excited about that. But I want to turn back to you, Kevin. So you were very involved in redefining leadership in Fayette County, and you've always been involved. Your whole family has been involved in being leaders of community, from the church perspective, from a political perspective. And what's interesting about our publication and organization is we constantly are trying to find multiple viewpoints from multiple people to really have a baseline, to have something that encompasses everyone's viewpoints in the realm of the pharmacy profession. And you and I had completely different political views when we first met on many different things that gave me an opportunity to learn another person's viewpoint from Fayette County's perspective. And I think you bringing that kind of your education background, the fact you were a teacher, the fact that you were a corporate trainer, and designed training programs, I think this is going to play really nicely into the personality of what is the Pharmacy Podcast Network, as well as This Week in Pharmacy.
So, you know, just for that thumbnail sketch of myself, you know, I started all the way back in college in publications with newspapers, literary magazines, and handling the actual production, layout, design, and ads for everything from local newspapers to collegiate newspapers. also with a background in photography and owning my own photography studio back in the old days when they weren't digital. And, moving from that perspective into corporate education. And as a corporate trainer and a manager of a corporate training department, responsible with actually even writing sales trainings and dealing with, enormous customers like Citibank and JCPenney's and Verizon and just, multi-billion-dollar companies, and working with their vice presidents and working with their heads of industry in order to make sure that everything was handled, within their metrics, within their structure, so that they were getting the best deliverables possible. And then spend some time in the adjunct professorial role and some time in the public school role. And, Todd and I discovered that we had a good mix, and that there was next steps that needed to be taken here at the Pharmacy Podcast Network with each of its individual programming. And so that's when I was brought on for business development and sales. And so really, I want you to understand that we can have, healthy conversations that are honed in directly to your needs, and then allow your creative space to be your creative atmosphere. It's a people don't really understand the power unless you start researching online the power of having dedicated podcasts to actual subject matter experts, and Todd mentioning the idea of sexual health, but then how that overlaps with testosterone replacement, how that overlaps with the idea of overall physical health and mental health, and that a conversation that a local pharmacist has with an individual about one element, they may be coming back to you with other changes that they're experiencing, and why are those other positives occurring? And that's where this can all be fleshed out in our atmosphere here, both as a deliverable for pharmacist to pharmacist, or company to pharmacist, or can become a new deliverable from pharmacist to actual consumer.
Yep. And that's important. This Week in Pharmacy was designed to be our bridge, because up until this point, for the last 13 years, my content has been designed for the pharmacist and the pharmacist professional, and just the internal, the B to C environment, the B to B environment, the business to business consumer environment. And it's time that we take what we've built and what we've done and get it to the consumer. Consumers have got to understand what their pharmacist is literally capable of. And I'm not just talking about the community. I'm talking about senior care. I'm talking about pediatrician interaction. I'm talking about specialty disease states and infectious disease and artificial intelligence, and how that plays into clinical trials, and how that plays into drug development. And pharmacists are right at the heart of all that. So that's the reason for this.
And because we're in an atmosphere here where the actual tone and the purpose of the individual podcasts are education. It is a method of communicating information. And so really that's where our expertise will come into play when it comes to having these conversations with you to discuss what are the objectives, what are the actual things that you want the person to walk away with, whether that person be a business to business environment or business to consumer environment. How can we work with the actual content with you to say, well, let's do this exact content over again, but let's drop some of the words or define some of the words so that we can actually deliver it to a consumer.
Exactly.
Whereas you can potentially deliver a larger amount of information with a common person who actually has the same vocabulary level. And so, those are the kind of conversations we need to have this year. Again, my name is Kevin Jones, and you'll find my contact information in the show notes. Please don't forget to visit pharmacypodcast.com, where you'll find other information about all the hosts and the different shows and the opportunities that maybe it'll give you some creative ideas for your own.
Kevin, thank you so much. We'll have you back, definitely. I think there's some stories that I'd like you to tell about your own experience with pharmacy and pharmacists, as well as how pharmacists were impacting the lives of your mom and dad as well, and kind of tying that into lessons and in ideas and subject matter experts. So I am excited, but thank you for being here.
Hey, it's always fun to spend time with you. Thank you, folks. It was nice meeting you.
All right. So let's talk about next week in pharmacy. And that is, we have so much happening at Pharmacy Podcast Network that there's this the next, you almost have to get ready for the next week, right now we have to get ready and we have to prepare. But the guy that is going to be our special guest next week, and the episode's going to be brought to us by, is Joe Delaney, who's been in the pharmacy industry for years, I think longer than me. And you can see First Class Returns right here. Is a returns organization that works with community pharmacy owners, and the importance of having a partner that really understands that business can save you thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars per year. And I'm going to be interested in hearing his insights, and we'll be having him come in through the meeting and our connections. But if you have questions for Joe Delaney, please send those to us in the interim. We'll be tweeting about this and Instagram, and we'll be talking about, how impactful returns are to your community pharmacy business. And then just the importance, the responsibility. Everyone that's in the industry, every single one of you, have a responsibility to look out for what is better for the people that we serve and that we care for. So I'm looking out for you as the pharmacy professional and the pharmacist. But ultimately, I'm also looking out for our representation to the consumer, which is, like I say, the most important person in healthcare is our patient, is our consumers. Hey, I want to give a shout out to the organization called Chartable. They rank podcast effectiveness. And something interesting, if you didn't know, they're kind of like the Nielsen ratings of podcast measurement of how effective, how many listeners keep coming back to the same podcast, and who is the authority in specific segments, specific information, whether that's business or healthcare, and in this case, business and news under business. You can see Wall Street Journal's there, Bloomberg is there, Yahoo Finance. The representation of pharmacy is also there. The Pharmacy Podcast has been the top 50 podcasts in business and in news for the realm of the connection to that for more than 4 years. And we're excited that we constantly hold against all those 2.6 million podcasts that are out there, that we hold our own as we're backed up by people like you that are listening. The subject matter experts, the stars of the show, which are our pharmacists, understand that we're representing you with great pride, and it's an honor to do this. But This Week in Pharmacy will bring in other subject matter experts and other podcasters. If you know of people that you think should be on This Week in Pharmacy, please make a suggestion for them. But that's it for today's show. This is a short one because this is our first. It will always get better. I guarantee it. I can't wait to talk with many of you at some of the upcoming conferences. We'll take This Week in Pharmacy on the road. Expect our road show to continue to grow. But heartfelt thank you for all of our listeners that are out there. Please subscribe to our show. Please go to thisweekinpharmacy.com and read about how you can become involved, as well as what our intentions are for this publication. But that's it for This Week in Pharmacy. I can't wait to see you next week, and we will talk to you soon.